Welcome to There is a Method to the Madness. My name is Rob Maxwell and I'm an exercise physiologist and personal trainer. I'm the owner of Maxwell's Fitness Programs and I've been in business for the past 28 years, since 1994. Today is Tuesday, May 17th, and today's topic is Rockin' the Ridge. How did that experience go? But before that, let me thank our sponsors, Jonathan and Lynn Gilman at the Gilman Group at Realty Pros. They currently have over 275 star reviews on Zillow, and between the two of them, 100 million in sales. That's pretty darn good, people. Rocking the Ridge, well, they're rocking the real estate. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Rocking the Ridge. Our team completed it this past weekend. It was on Saturday, and it is a 50-mile adventure trail race that some people do as a solo, some people do teams of 2, some people do teams of 4. We did teams of 4. We have done that before. We did it one other time in 2017, and we wanted to go back and do it again. Main reason why I do it is to raise money for the cause. The Rock the Ridge is up in Gardner, New York, in the Hudson Valley, in the mountains. You know, it sounds weird, it's the Hudson Valley, but the valley lead up to the mountains, and it's exactly what we did. And it's just a beautiful area. I was born in that area. I was born in Newburgh Hospital, and we lived in Gardner for the first 10 years of my life, and it's just one of the most beautiful countryside areas you can imagine. And for those that have been there, they know that. The famous Mohonk Mountain House is there, which has been filmed in a couple different movies, and that Netflix or Prime show, whichever one it was, Upload, was filmed there. So the lakes are beautiful, the whole area is beautiful. So anyway, they raise money for conservation and to keep the trails, which there are hundreds and actually thousands of trails up through there, and they raise money, and it's their number one money maker for the Minnewaska area up there. So that's why we do it. You know, I've always believed, put your talents, to your treasures. So we raise money by running because it's something we can do, and so that's the main reason. So let's just get that out of the way. Nobody's going up there to win the Olympics, right? I mean, there were some people that went up there that run it solo to qualify for some other ultra distance marathons, and that's pretty cool. And I was thinking while I was doing this race, there is just not an easy way to do a ultra distance race. Like, there's just not an easy way. Like, some things you can make, relatively easy. I'm well aware that that's a subjective statement, but for example, a 5K. Well, most people can make that 5K really hard by pushing red line the whole way, or they can make it relatively easy and walk it at a pace where they're walking through the mall or walking their dog. And again, I know that's relative because I know for some people that's very hard, so I'm by no means making a judgment call on that. I'm just trying to point out that it's possible for that kind of distance. When you're doing the really long distances, and especially in the mountains, there's just no easy way to do it. I mean, even the top notchers were walking up some of the mountains, so there's just no easy way to do it. So you're in for the long haul. Before I get to my main message on that, I just want to give you some statistics. So Angelica, she has done this with me before. She did the first leg, which was just under 13 miles, and there was a lot of elevation. So basically she started at the base and went up, and it twists you around and around. I'm not sure the elevation gain on that. It was pretty high, maybe like 1,200 or 13 or something like that, 1,000 feet. I took the next leg, which was 13.4 miles, and there was an elevation gain of, I think, 1,500, something like that. So that was very steep, very nice. The whole time I'm thinking this can't really keep going up, but it does. I've done this before, but I did it the first leg, the first time we did it in 2017, and it was slightly different. It was shorter. This time the first leg was a little longer, and this time the second leg was the longest Coming in third, I should mention on Angelica's leg, she was injured going into it. She's had a foot problem, so she had to tough it out, and we even discussed her potentially not doing it the night before, but she felt like she could gut it out and basically then take a few weeks off from running afterwards. But she went into it with an injury and still gutted it out and ran a very good time. I was pretty injury free. I had a little bit of an Achilles twinge that started actually that morning or the night before. It was nothing bad or to hold me up, but I was just conscious of it and aware of it. Emily took the next leg, which was just under 13 miles again, and now we're starting to go down the mountain. She still had some climbs, but for the most part now we're descending. She went into it injury free. She has done this one before with us, and she did very, very well. I mean, everybody did well. The fact it was completed. And then Ellen took the last leg, which was 11 miles. She was going to take the third leg originally, but went into this with a knee injury. She's probably the most injured out of the group. Her or Angelica, it's kind of a close call. They're both not going to be running for a few weeks, that's for sure. So, but she had a knee injury going into it, which she slipped getting out of a car. And she also wanted to give it a go. She knew she could walk a lot of it if she needed to. So she took the last leg, which was essentially 11 miles, and it was mostly down, but with some ups. I mean, there's no easy. So if you're in Florida and you run, you know that that's flat. So flat to them up there is not flat. It's still rolling to an extent. It's still little ups and downs even when they call it flat. And then there's really spiky like hills to get over bridges or things like that, which again they would call flat. We in Florida would call that very, very hilly. But on the upside, we always, if you come from Florida, have the advantage on humidity and heat, because it was funny listening to people up there talking about how humid it was, and we're looking around going, what, are you freaking kidding me? I mean, we wake up with water all over the cars and 90 to 100% humidity. It's like, this is not humid, this is dry. So, everything's all relative, and like everything in life, everything always balances out. So you are what you are when you bring yourself there and you do your absolute best, and everybody essentially is running the same course. So we did it in a little bit over 10 hours. So I think it was like 10 and a half hours, something like that. We were ninth out of 24 mixed relays. And what were we overall relay? We were in the, I forget, maybe 20 out of 47 or something like that. But, we're real proud of our 9 out of 24. I mean, that's excellent. And a lot of the other mixed relays had 2 guys, 2 girls. And, that's not meant to piss off any of the gender folks. It's just, a fact. VO2 max wise, that men typically are a little bit faster, although in our case, Angelica was the quickest. But you guys get what I mean. In any event, I'm very proud of our team. I coached them. We started probably first of the year with some initial stuff, and then Emily got COVID, so we had to back off her training a little bit. We've been doing some 5Ks and some 10Ks, and that's the longest Ellen had ever run in her life, I'm pretty sure. And that's probably the longest Emily has gone, although maybe she went a little bit longer the first time we did Rock the Ridge. But everybody was very well prepared. Everybody listened to the coach, which is me, so they went in hydrated. They went in with their carbohydrate goos and gels and had a good game plan, so it was a very successful day. The thing I'll focus on just a little bit here is like my thought processes while we're doing it, and what I find interesting in that, and you may or may not, but so as I said, mine started at the pickup point where Angelica came in, and I had to run up to the very top of Sky Tower, so it's the highest part of the Shwangunks mountain ranges, Shawngungks, Shwangunks, Indian name, and it's pronounced up there just Gunks. Everybody calls it the Gunks. It's one of the bouldering is one of the biggest things they do up there, and it's one of the top spots in the Northeast for people that want to scale the cliffs and stuff. You often see that. So anyway, I started where I was, probably midway up the mountain, I'm guessing. And then I had to, through trails and loops and all this stuff, go up to the top of Sky Tower. And Sky Tower is a very famous sky tower at the Mohonk Mountain House, which you can go up in and look out. You can see, I believe it's 4 states or 5 states or something like that. I have been up in it before, did not go up in it this time, but was able to run up to it, which was super cool. And I'll get to that in a second. It's such a beautiful sight. It's on so many different photographs and paintings. And, so it's just cool to get up that close to it. Because when you see it from a distance, it's like this speck that stands up. You have no idea. You get up to it, it's this huge tower, made out of stone, of course. So, stone and rock. So early on into the starting, I knew what I was getting into. I knew I had a ton of elevation gain to overcome. And it's not like when you do a 5K or a distance race here in Florida or most flat places or even on asphalt. It started out from the get-go, it sucks. I mean, you're going up and you're on kind of like rocky trail. So it's not like you really get a chance to warm up. You're kind of like, there's no way to warm up when you're going uphill. Like you can say you're going easy, but again, even walking up a hill is remotely difficult. So there's no way to really warm up, and I'm not going to sit there and warm up a lot ahead of time. So I'm not complaining about that. It is what it is. So anyway, it's tough in the first couple miles, and I'm thinking, oh God, 11 or so to go. This is gonna suck, that feeling of, again, not complaining. You have to kind of have been an endurance athlete to get what I'm saying. You're gonna do it. It's just a matter of, okay, here we go. Let's dial this in. And I talked about it in the one I pre-recorded, the podcast I pre-recorded, about how like there's different stages. So the early stage of this one was like, this is gonna suck. So, and as I'm going, what came through my mind was a guy tragically passed a few years ago. His name is Mick Mitchell, and he used to call him my black son. It was funny, he was a African American, and he just a great kid, and I coached him in football, and he'd call me his white pops, and I'd call him my black son, and it was great. He was in his 20s when he passed tragically on a motorcycle accident, but he's in my heart, obviously. One of the people that came to my mind as I'm out there, and I love to run and bike and stuff, and even swim, because your mind goes in places that you forget about sometimes, and that's what happened here. And he comes to mind, and his famous saying he always said, he didn't make it up, but he said it more than anybody I've ever known, which is, it is what it is. It is what it is. And I kept imagining his voice, it is what it is, Pops. And he's right, and I kept thinking that. It's like, well, when you're in a situation where you're in an endurance event, you've got 2 choices that are 100% within your control. You can keep going or you can quit. I mean, those are your choices. And then, of course, what popped through my head, and often does, it's like, or you could die, but see, that's not your choice. Get it? I mean, it's not your choice. And you think, God, that's morbid. It's like, no, not really. I mean, yes, it is. Of course it is. But it's more common than you think. In other words, it's not that people are necessarily afraid of that when they're doing stuff like that. It's more that you can be in such suffering, on a bike, especially when you're climbing this brutal hill. And when you know that your choices are those 2, because you know yourself, you can quit or you can keep going, and you know yourself well enough to go, well, I'm not going to quit. Then it becomes, oh man, it's like, man, if I hit by lightning right now, I don't think I'd overly complain, because my quads hurt. This is awful, and there's no end in sight. Now, of course, keep in mind that anybody that's ever done an endurance event, that suddenly passes, and of course, once they're finished, it passes quickly. So I don't want it to sound more morbid than it is, but literally that's, it's like, oh God, this sucks. But anyway, the point of that wasn't to go off on that too long, because that's not your choice. That's, in those situations, that's not your choice. What your choice is, you can keep going or you can quit, because if you stop, that's quitting. I mean, there's just no way around it. You're quitting. Some people are forced to stop because of injury, and that happens. And we did have quite a few DNFs up there, did not finish, the people who did the solos. And I think, I believe every relay team finished, is what Angelica said, but I do believe some people in the solo DNF'd. And she heard a statistic that only 60% or 60% of the people that try this on their own, the 50 miles all by themselves, DNF, which I totally get it. Like, I would not want to go 50 miles. To me, it's like, I'm not proving anything by doing that. That's just a lot of miles for, something that you can possibly gain somewhere else. I don't know. But anyway, that's not the point because I didn't do it. Those are my choices. And then once I dialed into that, I said, well, yeah, I'm not going to quit. So I'm just going to keep forging ahead. And that's what I do. So again, mine was 13.4. And so for me, it took me 2 hours, 39 minutes, which is just below a 12-minute mile, which if I'm doing a 5K, I'd be really disappointed with. But the fact that that is on trail and all uphill, I was pretty good with it. And I came up with different little, walk strategies so I can goo. And that's what I was talking about in the pre-recording of this, is that when you get into that stage, you come up with different games to play. So the first hour, I told myself I'm going to do 3 hours of running, 30 seconds of walking. When I get to the first hour, I said, I'm going to transition to 4 minutes and 45-second walking, and there's just pretty much, I do a lot of that because when you start thinking numbers that way, it keeps your brain very engaged because you have to think and add up. And I've heard other people say that. They love to do like mathematical problems while they're out covering such long distances. They might do it trying to figure out their time. In other words, if you're this much behind, how much do you have to make up? And then you start doing the math in your head. Whatever it is, it freaking works. I start doing different forms of math and changing things up. It might determine how many breaks I get to walk during a 1 hour segment of a run if I'm doing 3 minutes on and 45 seconds off. So it really keeps the brain preoccupied, which is a really, really good thing. Did I do that perfectly? No. I mean, then I'd see a water stop and I would fill up, so that would change that. But it keeps you engaged because, you are what you are. People look at that and say, well, what's the fastest way? It's like there isn't. It's all up to you what works the best, and whatever keeps you moving forward at the best pace possible is the best. Some people walk the hills, like the elites even were like, okay, I'm going to, when I get to a really steep point, I'm not going to waste my energy running, I'm going to walk it, and then I'm going to run down. So like it's whatever strategy works for you. And then you get to the final leg. I always break it down into thirds. So my final leg, and that was my experience, then it's like, okay, you're literally thinking this is cool. I got a little disappointed because I got to the very top of Sky Tower, which was absolutely beautiful, and I got to circle the Mohonk Mountain House Sky Tower, so I took a couple pictures as I was running and walking along. And then you think, or I thought, you're going down now. Like, oh, cool, you just get to because it was around 6 miles, I think, or 5 miles, so I thought, well, that works out right. So a 5-6 mile climb, literally the whole way, and you think you do a circle around the Sky Tower, which I did, and then you circle through the Mohonk Mountain House. I thought, okay, so now I'm on my way down. And I was for like 1.5 miles. And then all of a sudden I see they kind of routed us back up into the mountain. I'm like, oh my God, what a sick freaking joke. So I went back up again, and I started going back up and back up and back up. And it's like, oh. And speaking of math, so again, my goal was 12-minute miles, between the walk, the run, and all that. And I was pretty much far behind it once I got to the peak of the Mohonk Mountain House because it was just so damn steep. I'm like, oh shit. Like there were parts where I was literally running up the hill, running up at a 16-minute mile. And keep in mind, I can pretty comfortably hold an 8 or whatever, somewhere in there. So it literally like 16, 17 running up a hill. So my goal was kind of smashed at that point, but then I knew some declines were coming. So sure enough, on the declines leaving there, for about 1.5 miles, I was able to get it pretty good. So I was able to run a very good clip of low 9s and even into the 8s a little bit. So all of a sudden I started seeing that goal back in sight, and I started doing the math. And I thought, oh, if I hit 1:12 at 7 miles or 6 miles, then I'm back on pace. And sure enough, I did. I'm like, yes. And then I was able to maintain that. But then we went uphill again, and I'm like, oh, and I started doing the math again. Now what am I going to have to hold? Fortunately, this time climbing wasn't as steep as last time, so I was able to keep it closer to the 12. And then I did have a little downhills to bring it back down. And fortunately enough, I was able to really huff it the last little bit. And so I did hit my goal. It was like 11:56 or 8, I can't remember. But it was under 12, so I'm like, whew, barely by the, by a thread, but I did it. But the last part of this, which is funny, is, well, not funny at the time, but I'm coming by like right around 12 miles. And I couldn't remember honestly what my leg was. I couldn't remember if it was 12 and a half, 13 and a half. I knew it was somewhere in there. And I thought, I think we're all right around 12 and a half. So I'm thinking I'm almost done. So I go by this water station lady, and it's at mile 12. And I look at her and she goes, and I said, "Oh, so how much longer?" She goes, 2 miles. What? 2 miles? Oh my God. I'm like, I thought literally it was around the corner. I mean, you know what that's like to be told? Like, you literally know at the rest stop they have all this soup and bagels and food and all this stuff you want to refuel on, and then you're told 2 more miles. I was like crushed. I'm like, oh God. Okay, well, again, I have 2 choices. I can quit and be a baby, or I can, run through. And so I ran through, and then I got down and got this really steep decline on the way down. I'm glad I didn't trip running down. And then I turned my chip over to Emily, and off she went. And that was my time on the trail. But it was great. Like I said, the 2 things that came out of it were you can quit or you can keep going. And sometimes I think everybody's too careful about their words. But you know what? There is a toughness component. It's like there is a toughness component in endurance racing. There's just you're tough or you're not. I mean, there are injuries that pull people out, but then there are people that just really know how to endure. And I just got to use the word tough. You're just tough. And, if you get battled a little bit, and, look, this was not an easy trail. I had to stop twice to get rocks out of my shoes. It's like you can be a baby and get a rock in your shoe and get a bruise on your foot, which I did, and bitch about it and like quit. Or you can be like, you know what, screw it. Let me quickly pull this shoe off. I mean, I wasn't worried about anything other than time. I'm like, man, I don't want to be I don't want to hurt my team. I got to keep moving. So, it was a quick, not untie the shoe, of course, just pull it off, get the rocks out, and then I got another one. But anyway, you got to be tough to do this shit, and you got to be tough to do anything physically. I mean, too often we're like, well, why do people do things? Or some people are like, well, why does this happen to me? Or why am I not in shape? It's like there's a toughness component. Like, you got to will yourself through things, man. You got to have some self-discipline, I mean, everybody on the team, different fitness levels. There's 4 of us in different fitness levels, and everybody has their strengths and weaknesses on the team. But you know what? All 4 are tough. Tough as nails. That's why they're on the team. I'm not going to bring anybody, that's going to, have the attitude of I can't. I didn't hear it one time. It's like, it's going to be hard. My knee's going to hurt. My foot's going to hurt. Emily always talks about how nervous and anxious she gets, which I always tell her is perfectly normal to express, I mean, those are just real emotions. Say, you feel anxious, you feel nervous. That just means you give a shit. That doesn't mean anything bad. That's fine. It's the I can't do it, or why can other people do things I can't? Well, you can. You can. I mean, there were people out there that did the whole course in just under 18 hours. That's a 20-minute mile. Is that easy? No, I already said that's not easy, but it's doable. So I just love endurance stuff because, it makes you challenge yourself to the best of your ability. So that's all I got today. It was a great experience. And until next time, be tough. Seriously. And everything you do, just think about, I'm going to be tough. I'm going to be tough today. I'm going to have tough skin. And I'm going to do what I need to do, and I'm not going to complain about it, because you know what? If you complain, you don't make it better. You just make everybody around you worse. Remember that, okay? So until next time, be max fit and be max well.